Welcome to the Zoologist's Campfire, the podcast where animal professionals share their best, funniest, and most epic stories. Today, I am joined by Michael Jowers, a biologist with, I think, the best specialization you can think of. Pay attention here, kids. This is how you do it. You specialize in, drum roll, tropical islands. Michael got his PhD from the University of Glasgow, but has since spent many years chasing reptiles and amphibians and lots of other animals around the Caribbean, South America, and many other places. He described 16 species new to science. He has written close to 100 articles, book chapters, and even field guides. He is now at the University of Granada in Spain. So, Mike, welcome.
Thank you very much, Harry. Lovely to be here with you.
Well, before we get into your stories, which I know are fantastic, I just called you a tropical island specialist, but you actually do a lot more. Can you perhaps briefly tell us what you do as a biologist and how you got into it?
That's a great question and a difficult one to answer, to be honest, because I'm intrigued by most things, and therefore I've never had a very constant line of research. But let's say that I used genetics or molecular markers to identify species, and very often species are cryptic, and through genetics we can clarify if instead of one species is more than one. So this is kind of what I do, and most of the times you end up finding new species that sometimes thought to be actually quite common or widespread.
Mm-hmm.
When you do this in islands, because animals become isolated, you end up finding a lot of new species for science. So this is kind of what I do.
Right.
It has
That's how you find all those new species, because yeah, you have a lot to your name. That's really cool.
most of the time, some of the times we actually do find with our collaborators new species,
Mm,
but many other times are just unknown species, let's say.
right.
So this is what we try to do, and it has huge conservation implications, of course.
Yeah, and of course you enjoy going to all these beautiful countries and finding them, chasing them. Is
Of
that
course,
is
that's the
that
best
something you
part.
fell into, or is that ingrained?
Actually, I grew up in southern Spain in Seville, and my desire to become a zoologist just began at a very early age by the nature surrounded where I used to live. Me and my brother lived with my mother, and she had a country house. And then at the time, it was not very built up, so we would just spend our childhood riding our bikes and looking for reptiles and amphibians because they were everywhere in southern Spain. Had
Yeah.
big lizards, many snakes, turtles all over the place. So my mother actually donated her big yard, the garden, for us to actually have animals. Kind of like Gerald Darrow in Corfu, his
Yeah,
upbringing.
I know the
And we
book.
ended up having a pond that we built ourselves. Like we were maybe 10, 11 years of age. We had 200 turtles. We had uh, you name it, we had it. And this is how we had it. Well, I even had a caiman.
Really?
Yeah, I donated it to the zoo. Obviously, uh, nowadays I do not believe that people should have exotic animals, but at the time I was quite
Hmm.
young and fascinated by the so beautiful. And I had a monitor lizard, a big one,
Hmm.
and there's some chipmunks or ferrets or anything. I would just, and it was known as the zoo. People will come round and just walk the garden to see all our animals. We had
Really?
hedgehogs and
Huh.
yeah, that's how it started. That obviously the only progression, viable progression from there was to become a zoologist. And my mum, when I was growing up, she would often say that I learned very quickly never to open a box or a drill, unless I knew what was inside, because sometimes you would have scorpions or lots of snakes and things
Mm.
like that. So she was very wary of opening anything in the house. There's always some creepy crawly running around.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's how I started. And obviously I progressed to do biology because that's the only thing I wanted to do my whole life,
Mm,
basically.
mm, mm.
It's a
Yeah.
natural progression. And
And
doing expeditions is just kind of a more sophisticated thing than what I used to do when I was a child, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Once you get into it, you never get out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Um, and you have gone all over the place. And as I said, you've picked your regions very wisely. The Caribbean, not bad. And you even worked on scorpions, that of course are some of my favorites.
Right.
You have to
Right.
have favorites, but
Absolutely.
and you had some adventures with scorpions in Trinidad,
What?
I believe, right?
Yeah, in the island of Trinidad, where I spent over like three expeditions, over a year there,
Mm,
all in all. I was working on amphibians, and this professor flew from Venezuela. I mean, Trinidad is very close to Venezuela. The Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is just basically a stone throw away from northern Venezuela, and he wanted to capture these scorpions which are found in Trinidad. Very very dangerous scorpion called Titius trinitatis,
yeah.
and we'll spend the nights with UV lamps, black lights, trying to find the Titius, but we actually never found at the time the Titius. We found many species, but not this one. And
Hmm.
it was very hard to find. And we wanted to capture some live specimens to isolate the venom gland and do the amino acid composition of the venom. But basically, after quite a long time, we managed to find a couple of large individuals.
Oh,
The
okay.
professor had already left, and he'd given me instructions how to euthanize the scorpions to
Mhm.
extract the venom gland to preserve the glands. And you have to bear in mind that these expeditions, we used to go with undergrad students to Trinidad, 20 at a time.
Okay. It's a
And
big group.
a big group,
Mm.
yes, yes. And obviously, I'm not a scorpion expert as yourself. So I had very detailed instructions what to do and what not to do. And I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to show my students how it's done. Obviously, I've never done it myself
Sure.
before. I have never touched such a venomous scorpion ever, so I was very worried and actually quite nervous. You know, it's like we're like dealing with a very venomous snake.
Hmm.
So here we are. We have a communal living room and a kitchen. It's very big. It's off campus at the University of the West Indies. It's very basic, but we have everything we need. As you may be aware, it's extremely hot. And so all the students are in swimsuits,
Oh, nice.
barefooted. They're all barefooted.
Yeah, yeah.
They're just, and we have this big dining table. So I have my scorpions there in this Tupperware, and I have these tweezers to grab the to grab the scorpion, the first scorpion. All those
Hmm.
students come along. Everybody's just putting their head into the Tupperware. I'm surrounded by students barefooted everywhere. And I'm just telling them, look, this is extremely dangerous. This is a very toxic animal, venomous animal.
Hmm.
If you get stung by this, you may even die, God knows. And so all the students are like, wow. And so I'm going to show you how to euthanize this thing. I think we had to put it in warm water at the time or something. And
Sure. Yeah, that
so
would work.
basically, I
Mm.
just grab these tweezers and try and grab the scorpion by the tail. For whatever reason, this big scorpion just curls back on me on the tweezers, just and with his pincers, just
Yeah.
starts getting my hand, and
Oh,
I'm
very
not,
short tweezers.
yeah, very short tweezers, or just basically I just didn't grab it properly,
Mm.
and this thing just kind of released itself. Maybe the tweezers were not the right ones.
Yeah.
There's this scorpion on the table, and to my amazement, this thing runs like a lizard. It's so
Mm.
fast. So it starts running down the table and jumps out. Imagine the students, which are barefooted and without everybody run, everybody started running in opposite directions. And I remember this student, like he was a big guy. He actually jumped and hugged the fridge, and he was hanging to the fridge. It's hilarious. I
Oh
thought,
my
oh
God.
God, this fridge is going to fall on top of him. And then I don't know how it happened. Two other scorpions. Somebody hit the container. There's three scorpions running around. Everybody's one is on the
Right.
chair, the other one is on the couch, another one. We can't find the bloody things. Anyways, and I thought, oh my God, they were so close to having, such a bad
That's
accident. Obviously, we managed to find them. It took us like about 10 minutes
mhm.
because they run, somewhere in the kitchen under the
Yeah.
pots. And
They go under something and yeah, yeah.
yeah, some of the students were still shaking for a while, and it was hilarious. You had to be there to see that. I was like, oh my Lord, I nearly killed a student or two. So anyway, that's my my
Oh,
first encounter with a very dangerous scorpion.
yeah.
It was fun. I won't do it again, I promise.
No, the tweezer thing is very familiar because if you grab a scorpion, its tail bends one way, and if you grab it by with tweezers perpendicular to the direction of movement, you're fine. Nothing can happen. But if you grab it in the direction of movement, it can just flip itself
Right.
away, and it will launch into, the next person or your face or something like that.
Well, kind of that's what happened, I think. But I didn't know scorpions were so fast. Like this
Mm,
was so mad. This thing wanted to get out.
yeah.
And like Christ. Anyway, so yeah, so that was a lucky escape, I'd say.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, the chances of getting stung are not huge, but
Okay.
I can
Good
imagine
to,
the students after being told by you, like, this is the most
yeah, exactly.
dangerous.
So dramatic, like, oh.
I love the
Uh,
image of somebody climbing the fridge.
no, that was hilarious. Yeah, hugging, like just floating, and he's floating in the air, just hugging this big fridge. It's unbelievable.
But in the end, the scorpions were used for science. Let's call it that way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of
Mm.
course they were. The venom glands and the tissue samples were shipped to Venezuela, and they got some really nice scientific papers out of them. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw your papers on them, of course.
Okay.
But it's cool to know the story behind it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's this very dry paper title, the peptides in the da 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 da,
Right.
and then this is behind it.
Yeah. That was unpublished, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah. So that's the scorpion. I mean, there's other encounters in Trinidad, because we spent there so long,
yeah. You wrote
with
the
some.
one of the few field guides on reptiles and amphibians of Trinidad and Tobago, right?
Yeah, it's a second edition. It's led by John Murphy, who's like
Mm.
the person who started it, or he's traveled many times to Trinidad and Tobago, and I work regularly with him. He's a great guy, and I actually met him in Arizona this summer for the film.
Oh,
So
cool.
I was very happy. Yeah, so we got this guide out, but I mean, all credit to him. He did most of the job.
Right.
He's amazing.
Well, you spent a
Yeah,
lot of time there anyway.
yeah, for sure. We found lots of new species of snakes, also tupinambis, big lizard, uh, and frogs, which are
Mm.
very difficult to find in the jungle,
Mm.
because they're very, cryptic and conspicuous, difficult to find. Um, this frog, we took us maybe like 3 expeditions to find it. We could hear it calling from a
Yeah.
swamp. But when you approached it, it would just disappear under the water. I just could not find it. And
Huh.
it took us many trips. It was 4 hour, no, a 6 hour round trip to go to this swamp. And this frog was only found in 1994. Only one individual, one male.
Really?
Yeah. And for 10 years, we could not find it. Nobody could
Only the
find it.
sound.
Only we could hear a frog calling, and we would think it was that one. And
Hmm.
after 3 years trying, at least myself, to capture it, just had to go into murky, swampy, black water. And you have to understand this, there's featherlands, there's pit vipers there, there's caimans, there's you
Yeah.
got to, You've
A
never
tropical
been?
swamp. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's heavily populated with everything, and you would hear the males calling, and suddenly they disappear. And there were some islets, like little islands on top of
Yeah.
in the swamp, very small, with lots of roots and mud. And suddenly I realized that the males would call just by the roots of these little islets.
Hmm.
And when you approach, they would stop calling and disappear. So I figured out that the only way to get this animal was
Yeah.
actually putting my whole hand in the burrows and trying to grab over whatever was in there.
That's a bit
And just,
dangerous.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So my first response, I put my whole hand in the burrow. It's full of mud and it's murky water. It's half is in the water, half is outside, so you just can't see what's going on. You put
Uh-huh.
your whole arm and you feel something, but you first something moved and touched my arm. The first thing you do is pull out, obviously, because you don't know if it's a snake, you don't know what the hell it is. After a while, I actually took the courage to just grab whatever that was.
Hmm.
You can imagine, you don't know what that, and just pull it
Yeah.
out. And I managed, yeah, and I managed to find four frogs and the first ever female captured. And so yeah, that's another
So you
thing.
did that trick multiple times with the
Yeah, I had
blind
to
grabbing
spend
stuff.
a whole morning doing that and wishing for the best not to get a whatever it may have been, a tarantula or
Oh
maybe
yeah.
a,
Yeah.
a snake,
Mm.
And yeah, well, I was lucky. So I managed to pull four out, but of course I had to dig in my arm and dozens of burrows and just feel for whatever that was inside.
Yeah.
And no wonder nobody could find this thing because nobody was going to do that. Very
No.
few. My students refused to do it. Like I said, okay, you guys, now you know how you do it. When I called the first one, they all refused. Said, no way, I'm not.
Yeah, no.
I'm
They're
not going to do
probably
that.
smarter than you, Mike.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's Leptodactylus nisiotus. This is possibly the greatest challenge we had there. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
The
cool.
leptodactyls.
And
Those are pretty big frogs usually, right? I mean, it can be,
yeah,
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 sizable.
they actually, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a group of frogs. They lay foam,
Hmm.
floating foam, and they put the eggs and the tadpoles hatch inside the foam.
Yeah.
But with this species, nobody's ever found how it breeds.
Okay.
Nobody's ever found a tadpole. So it's a mysterious animal, and it's only found in this one swamp in the south of Trinidad, in this little peninsula. And the swamp is small. It's maybe like 5,000 square meters. That's it. Nowhere else.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. Yes.
Wow. Well,
Yeah. Yeah. So
aspiring
it's
biologists, pay attention.
yeah.
This is just many of mysteries and still there. Oh, that's
Yeah.
I mean, the only people I know that stick their hand down burrows to grab stuff are people working in Madagascar because they know there is nothing venomous there.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
well, nothing dangerous. I mean, there's some scorpions there and some
Okay.
spiders, but nothing that will kill you. But yeah,
Right.
otherwise it's a bad idea.
Yeah. It's very, no, it's not
You were
wise. No.
desperate. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I was also with my flip flops there and I was stung by something. I think it was maybe a scorpion or a
Mm.
spider, and my foot was like a balloon for like 3 days. Or
Oh.
it's still full of creepy crawlies. Well, you know what it's like.
No, I
Anyway,
don't.
so yeah, Trinidad, yeah, um,
Awesome. Yeah, and so you had the first female. You described it, I
yeah,
presume, and that all was
and also then we took them to the lab alive. We studied them for weeks.
okay.
And we recorded the calls, and we published more than one paper. And one paper was when they are mad, they have this distinctive call. So
Oh,
we actually published as well that they have different calls, the mating calls, and maybe male-male competition, and then what we call an aggression call.
cool.
But even in the lab, we had them in huge tanks. You can never see them. They would just hide in the mud.
Mm.
Even if you knew they were in a 1 square meter tank, and it would
Yeah.
take you a while to find the frog. They're extremely elusive animals.
Mm.
Extremely elusive animals. Yeah. So um, and
Wow.
then yeah. So some of the stories of Trinidad.
Yeah, no, and to know anything about an animal, you need to first find it. That's pretty basic.
Yeah,
So well done
yeah,
there. Ah,
yeah. That was a very rewarding event.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then to be able to study it in the lab and get all that data out of it.
yeah,
Uh
yeah, yeah.
yeah. You increase the knowledge of that particular species by a lot, I imagine.
Yeah, and it's extremely, it's an endemic. I mean, we
Mm.
found other frogs, like golden tree frog of Trinidad, which is one of
Hmm.
the rarest frogs in the planet. It only
Really?
lives in, yeah, it lives in two summits, in Tucushan, in the cloud forests. And this
Uh-huh.
is like, I think in the Edge website, the Edge is
Hmm.
ADGE. Is that Edge? Yeah. This is the rare evolutionary species. This frog is like number 80 in the world as one of the rarest evolutionary species in the world.
Oh, cool.
It's only found in two mountaintops in Trinidad,
Uh-huh.
and recently they found a population in Venezuela.
Oh,
And it lives on a giant bromeliad, only in that bromeliad, nowhere else. The
yeah,
type of
yeah.
feeds on the microalgae. So Trinidad is fascinating because it has and this is a monogenous animal. It's the only species of its genus. It's called Phytotriadis.
Mm.
It's
Oh, well,
extremely rare, and that's
I
it. There's no
I
other close relatives anywhere.
first time I hear of it too. So,
Yeah,
yeah. Wow. Cool. And you also spent some time in Venezuela, right? I mean, you've had
yeah.
some trips there.
I mean, I had one trip from my PhD.
Hmm.
I had to go and fly over and meet some researchers, local researchers, to look for this dendrobatid frog, which I guess you're aware with because you published with dendrobatids, haven't you? Your early work,
I think so. Have I?
don't you? I think you have that big paper of isn't it? I think
No,
didn't
I
you?
may be on on a few papers, but I just did a few bit of sequencing. I didn't
Okay,
actually.
I thought
It's
maybe
a
I got it wrong.
sad thing as a grad student. You're in the lab, going through
Right.
people like you go to the field, get all these fancy frogs, and I get in the lab. I got to
Well,
analyze the DNA, but you get the final
well,
story.
these days I do that. To be honest, my expeditions to Trinidad were quite some time ago. Now I have amazing collaborators. They send me the tissues. They are maybe from Venezuela or Trinidad. They've
Mm.
been working much more than I have there. So now I rely on their expertise, and they ship me the tissues, and I'm like you. I'm doing the genetics and writing the story, right? So all credit to them for sure.
Yeah.
Venezuela, yeah. So I was working on this dendrobatid. It's called Manofrine
Hmm.
trinitatis from Trinidad. It's an endemic species of frog,
Beautiful
and
frogs, very colorful. Yeah.
yeah, but this one is the dark one. It's actually
Ah,
this one is
okay.
it's the non-pretty one, unfortunately for me. But I actually most of my PhD was on this frog. Okay, and it was believed to occur in the north of Venezuela, in this beautiful place called the Paria Peninsula. And so we ran some genetic work, and we actually realized that the animal in Venezuela was a different species. So we called it Manophrine
Mhm.
venezuelensis, very original. Nevertheless, we wanted to find a species called Manophrine hermini, which is closely related to the Trinidad and the northern Venezuelan species. For this, I flew from Trinidad. I got a little airplane, the propeller airplanes, and I flew to
Oh,
Caracas. And from
yeah.
Caracas, I got another little propeller plane, and I flew down south to Maturin, I think it was. It's in the jungle, and this trip was terrible. This little airplane, it had seen better days. You could see the rust everywhere, and I remember all my life that this guy from Galicia, I don't know what he was doing in the airplane. There was about two or three people, that's it, in the
Hmm.
airplane. Me and this, maybe, I think the stewardess and this guy. This guy was praying because the plane was jumping and it was terrible. And the clouds would come in the airplane. It was freezing cold inside. And he
Wow.
was, oh, what? Why am I here? Why am I here? My life, my job is not worth it. This is not worth it. This. He was cursing all the tree. I was like, oh Christ. Anyway, so basically there's this strip of land in the jungle, like this. We just
Mm.
land and this thing is hot, and the guy from Galicia is just, thank you, Lord, thank you, thank you. It's just so thankful to be alive. It's like, okay, here we go.
Fantastic.
And so I've got a huge rucksack because I'm going to meet some local researchers to go and look for this frog.
Mm-hmm.
And they know where to find it in the jungle. It takes about 3 days of 2 days of trekking
Mm-hmm.
through rivers to actually go to the summits where they're found.
Wow.
Of course, I end up walking to what you would call a little airport, but it's not an airport. It's like a room, and they asked me, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm a researcher. I'm doing my PhD, and I'm coming to work." I presume this is a high drug area or
Mm.
a conflict zone, and I get a paramilitary with machine guns pointing at me. And
Right.
I was like, oh dear, maybe I should have said something different. And so they put me in a room. It's kind of a detention room. I'm close there. And I don't know what's going to happen to me. They take my passport, they take my rucksack, they leave me there, they close me in. I don't know how long hours
Wow.
I was there, and I'm
Well,
young.
why? I
I
mean,
don't know, because it's just very suspicious that
mm.
you have this European in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
alone with no local researchers, and so okay. So I don't know how much the
So
time
there you
lapse of
were
that.
detained in the middle of nowhere
Yeah,
in the middle of
yeah,
the jungle.
but this weird dressed military, which I don't know who they are. They don't
Mm.
seem like national military. It's just like I don't know. It's
Yeah.
I'm confused, right? Because I
Yeah.
was expecting a normal airport. I was expecting a little town. Just somebody stamps your passport, you just walk through.
Yeah.
And I was looking forward to it, and then I realized, oh, okay, this is really not what I thought it was going to be. So
Wow. Yeah.
basically,
And you
they
were
opened
very
the
young then, right? You were a PhD student. You were
yeah. This
pretty
is
much a
like
kid. Yeah.
second year PhD or third
Okay.
year
Yeah.
PhD. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. I was not the youngest. I did my PhD kind of late in life. Maybe I was
Mm.
28. But even
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
you're not prepared to for basically. So after a while, they take me out, and there's a big table, and they put my rucksack on the table, and there's
Hmm.
3 or 4 guys pointing at the rucksack with a gun, and another one at me, and they asked me to open and take everything out. And
Yeah.
of course, they have ependols to preserve the samples, tweezers, alcohol, or ethanol.
Uh,
I have all the equipment. So kind of they start maybe believing my story that I'm coming for research. So they told me to pack everything in my big rucksack, and they walked me through a room. And this I will never forget. It's like in the movies of Narcos, when you open the room, and I have to picture this room. It's like an old table and
hmm.
a chair, and there's this guy who looks like in the movies of Narcos, a drug dealer. He's got a tight sweat vest on, and he's got big belly, all stained.
Yeah.
He's got his mustache, and he's smoking a cigar. And he's holding his passport, my passport, with his left arm. And you have this old fan, just, which is
Right.
all just getting a bit of air. He's all sweaty, and, and he's holding the passport in the air, my passport, and he's just smoking the cigar and just kind of thinking about something.
Right.
And I'm like at the door, and I'm just thinking, okay, this is it. This is what happens
Ooh.
in the movies. I'm gonna get killed, or
Yeah.
that's me done. My whole life, his hand is in his hand, his passport.
Mm.
My passport, if he decides to
Yeah.
break the passport or throw it, I'm done. I'm never getting out. And so he calls me, and he's just like that, come. And to his surprise, I speak Spanish fluently,
Ah. Mm.
even though my name says Michael J. Jowers. So this is he said, what are you doing here? You
Mhm.
know, in English, I think it was. And then I started speaking Spanish. And I said, look, I'm coming for a frog. He could not believe it. I said, what? You coming for a frog? I said, yes, I'm coming to get this frog. Really? You're flying from the UK to Trinidad to Caracas here for a frog? Yes. And he was like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. You know, this this guy is crazy. So then he asked me, okay, who's picking you up? Who are you working with? What does a
Mhm.
frog look like? You know, everything.
Oh,
So I
yeah, yeah.
explained, and he loved the story. I can't believe it. You and so that he said that's fantastic. And he just did something to my passport, gave it back to me, called the
Hmm.
guys to accompany me out, and several
Okay.
hours later, I met up with the researchers outside this airport. And I was like, thank you for the frog. You know, he was just amused by it. Like he was like, he thought it was fantastic, fantastic. You know, I'm sure he went home that day and told his family that this guy
Yeah. Well, I
came
guess there's
to
not a lot happening there at that little airport every day, right? I
nothing. No.
mean, you're the craziest thing to come by there in
Yeah.
a long time.
So I was very blessed to get the out of that place and survive
Mm.
that little aeroplane thing. It's like a little dragonfly, you know, the airport airplane. It was so dodgy. Anyways,
So
and
cool.
obviously
Yeah.
we didn't find the frog. We
Ah,
went to hell and back to find the earth, sleep
painted.
deprivation. We're sleeping
Ah,
in hammocks, eaten alive by mosquitoes.
yeah.
And it's the only time in my life that I had to call it quits and say, I cannot carry on. I have to stop. I'm going to faint. That's the only time in my life that my body was to its limit. And
Wow.
we couldn't make it. We couldn't find the frog. Anyway, so
Wow. No, but that's
never
yeah.
found it. Yeah.
How
So,
long did you
anyways,
spend there on the mountain looking for it?
oh, it wasn't long. Maybe it was like 5 days, a week, but I was,
Wow, it's long enough to kill you.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was sleep deprived, not sleeping at night. The mosquitoes were just going for me like crazy. And
Mm.
I was sleeping 1 hour a night. The
Ooh.
diet was terrible, having dry yuca with tuna not to have diarrhea.
Yeah.
It was not right. And yeah, my colleagues eventually found the frog, but I think it took us like another year or something like that.
Okay. It's a
Yeah.
good thing you didn't stay around for that.
No, no. I wanted to get out. But yeah, that was,
So was the guy disappointed when you came back and didn't have
oh,
a
I never
frog to
saw him
show?
again. I never
No?
saw him again.
Okay,
No,
cool.
no, I flew out through another airport. I
Okay.
think they dropped me off in Caracas and
Mm.
I don't remember where. I just flew out somewhere different. I don't know.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would have detained you because you couldn't show a frog.
Yeah, yeah. They were, oh, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that was a defeat, let's say, never finding the. It's happened many times. I failed in Martinique to find a dendrobatid as well.
Mm.
I failed to find a snake again in another. Sometimes they're just gone. They just can't find them.
No,
So,
I know. I mean, I've seen the really cool documentary on Ushuaia TV
oh
of
yeah,
you guys going to Diamond Rock, which is a
yeah.
small, almost vertical island just sticking out of the tropical sea to find a snake there. But yeah.
That was one of the hardest expeditions ever, for sure.
Mm.
I think nothing prepares you for that. Me and my good friend Stefan Ko, is a French researcher. We worked together in Doñana Biological Research Station in Seville,
Hmm.
and we wrote a paper about this snake, this believed to be extinct, Leophis cursor. This is a colubrid snake, and we managed to get some samples from the Natural History Museum in Madrid, sorry, in Paris, and
Hmm.
I managed to sequence some genes and
Okay.
put it in an evolutionary tree, and we published a little nice paper. And this snake was believed to be extinct, but there was reports
Mm.
that after the introduction of the mongoose in the island of Martinique in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
the snake population had been decimated, extinct. Mongoose predate on snakes.
Yeah,
But
famously. Yeah.
exactly, and they're a huge problem in the Caribbean. But this small islet, maybe like 300 meters off the coast of Martinique, hasn't got mongoose. And
Mm.
the last reports and the last captured individual, which I sequenced, I believe, was captured from this little island in
Okay.
1962.
Ooh, that's a while
So,
ago. Yeah.
yeah, so that's the last time that an animal was captured, a specimen of Leophis cursor, Leophis cursor. That's it.
Yeah.
So we thought, hey, what about going to this place and
Hmm.
seeing if the animal is still there? It would be fascinating.
Yeah.
And we got funding. I think I'm not sure it was through National Geographic or, and I think no, maybe another organization. And we actually led an expedition there
Mm.
and to look for the snake.
Yeah.
Now we stayed in a house preparing the expedition for 3 weeks, and in the island of Martinique, it's a very nice island. It's it belongs to France. It's very comfortable,
Yeah.
beautiful. And from the house, we could see Diamond Rock.
Right.
So we had the binoculars and we just planned, okay, interesting, We prepared traps, 40 traps that we released, we put in the island, in the
Hmm.
Diamond Rock eventually. And we were organizing for 3 weeks. It was me,
Wow.
my colleague, and a cameraman
Yeah.
from Canada,
Okay.
Alex, who came to film because we were going to do a documentary out of it.
Hmm.
And basically, we got a boat to take us there. And you have to bear in mind there's no water in this island. And we have a filming equipment, cameras, well, you name it.
Yeah.
So we are taking, I don't know, 500 kilos of equipment. I mean, just the water, I think we took 600 liters.
Yeah.
You can't be there without water. Nobody lives there. The food, hammocks. We're going to sleep on hammocks in the caves. And
Hmm.
so we load the car 4 in the morning, go to the port, load everything in the boat. And from a distance, everything looks nice. Like, okay, this is going to be easy. It's like
Yeah. Little island, 300
little
meters
island.
away from
Yeah, like
civilization. How bad
no
can it
big
be?
deal. No big deal. I've done this before. Oh, and we go with a climber actually. The
Oh.
first day we take a professional climber
Mm.
to open and put the ropes so we can
Right.
actually
Yeah.
move around the island. So we get there, and as we're getting closer, Stefan and I look to each other and we realize, oh my word, what are we? This is impossible. It's a sheer wall, this thing.
Uh-huh.
We're not, you have to bear in mind, we're not climbers. We've been doing climbing for the last weeks to train, but we're not professional climbers. And we don't know how to work the equipment properly. This has just been
Hmm.
given to us the night before. We get there
And
and
this
the
is a
boat,
sheer
yeah,
rock face, this island. I mean,
it's terrible. It's just, and it's one of those times when you realize, okay, maybe I've chewed on too much that I can swallow. This is too much. And of course, the boat is trying to get to the landing dock, let's say, where we're going to
Mm.
start releasing, putting all the equipment. But this boat is moving up and down. The waves are hitting, and basically we have to unload all just the water. It's like 600
Yeah.
liters, and through just there's an old rope on the side of the wall. We just hang into that with all the equipment, and there's one cave. We start putting everything in one cave. At one
Hmm.
point, Stefan, who is blind as a bat, loses his glasses, and they
Oh.
fall to the sea. So I have to dive and look for them. And so I had to go like down 8 or 10 meters, and luckily they were hanging on the wall on top of a sea urchin.
Oh.
And I managed because otherwise he would have been blind. So this is the beginning. And it's exhausting. And we download hundreds of kilos of equipment and food and you name it.
Hmm.
And this is camp one. And then from there, we have to take some equipment to the next camp. And this is, again, you have to go through like a forest open with machetes and to leave a second camp, which
Hmm.
is where we have the food and most of the water and the hammocks. And then it's when the climbing starts. And then you have to climb maybe 100 meters or 120 meters to go to the cave where we're going to sleep because there's no other way to other place to sleep
Wow.
down in the base. There's no beach, there's no sand, it's all lava
It,
or when it's like rock, and
yeah.
it's full of it's mosquitoes. It's going to rain, so you need cover.
Yeah.
Also for all the expensive filming equipment. Little did I know that after the climber, I think it's called Laurence, I don't remember. He prepares the lines because the old
Hmm.
lines were just all broken. Just to get to the cave, I remember thinking, how are we gonna do this? This is just terrible. It's so hard, so heavy. Anyway,
Hmm.
so and then um we had to do many trips to go to the cave. It's an hour each way just to go up and
Hmm.
another 45 minutes to go down. And I remember clearly being exhausted after 16 or 18 hours the first night. And we're going to cook, and we forgot the gas, the gas valves at the very
Oh
first.
no.
So we
You have
had
to
to eat.
climb all the way down again.
No, it was night. So we just ate. We didn't have the strength. So we just ate, packet noodles, the dry
Oh yeah.
stuff. That's what we ate. That's that with
Raw.
water. Yeah, yeah, raw. Yeah, yeah. That's what we had.
Oh.
And so basically, we went to look for this snake. And this island used to be in the Napoleonic Wars, it was an English colony.
Hmm.
And the French fought to take it back. And after a
Right.
long campaign, they managed to take it. And nobody had ever spent more than one night in this place until me and Stefan went, which is
Wow.
it's funny because the English fought the French for so long.
Yeah.
And it was 2 years later then a French scientist, my Stefan, and myself, English, actually went together to
Mm,
try and look for a snake for conservation, which
that's
is,
very cool.
we
Yeah.
made peace. We made peace. And of course, there's reports that when the English lived there, it was absolutely full of snakes
Okay.
because they built a pool with fresh
Mm,
water and then there were snakes. But when the pool cracked and
mhm.
the fresh water disappeared, the populations of snake populations disappeared. So
Right.
we spent 10 days there. It was hard and it's full of cacti as well, which is so odd, like
Mm,
huge spiny cacti, like and we didn't find it. We actually went back 3 years later
you're
to
right. Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, we
Huh.
had to go twice to the technology had changed since the first edition of the documentary
Mhm.
to and now it's drones. So we had to go back with another team and use drones, and we still couldn't find the snake.
Ah.
We never found it.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the snake is it's possibly extinct,
So,
and
wow. So that specimen that you sequenced from the museum may have
was the
been one of
last
the
one.
last one.
The thing is,
Huh.
there's local myths by fishermen that they still see the snake there. We went to Martinique in the market, and everybody was saying, "Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen the snake
Oh, sure.
basking on the rocks." And all these stories, oh, that was
Mm.
like 5 years ago. So, but it's obviously not true. It's basically just myth now.
Yeah.
And it was very. I mean, it was a good experience, but then the sheer size of these walls, and
Mm.
also nobody told us you're gonna have to be climbing 16 hours a day, and
Ooh,
like
that's
not
so heavy.
everybody,
Yeah.
no, we were fortunate enough to be healthy and fit, but
Yeah.
maybe somebody that hasn't got upper strength, they could. I'm not seeing. I don't know how they would do this,
Now,
and
I mean, having seen that island on the documentary is just a bit of rock sticking out straight from the sea. It's all
yeah,
vertical until
yeah,
the top, and yeah, covered with nasty spiny. So
Yeah,
yeah, don't let the tropical island biologist thing fool you.
yeah.
This is tough.
Yeah, but it
Wow.
was it was fantastic. It was a beautiful place, and you can see Martinique at night from there.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and there's obviously some funny stories. We took 3 liters of punching rum, but we had no ice and no lime, so we just drink it straight. And that wasn't a good idea because we got very intoxicated one night, and you're by a cliff, and you need to go
Yeah.
to the loo very quickly, and you're looking for a spot, and everybody's looking for a spot at the same time, and
Uh,
it's kind of nasty, and you would go to the toilet, but there's very limited places, so you can only go once to the same spot. You
mm.
cannot repeat, right?
Yeah,
You cannot
yeah.
cover it or
You
anything.
cannot
So
dig, so it's all rock. Yeah.
yeah, so 3 liters of rum, and it's actually over 75% alcohol with no lime, no
Yeah. Yeah.
ice. Not a good idea when you're
Terrible,
dehydrated.
terrible idea, Mike. Terrible idea to
But that
bring
was
that.
like our thing at the end of the day was like,
Mm.
let's have a rum. And
Mm.
even though it felt like terrible, it was like, it's going to be done. And I think we drank it all actually, or most of it. And then obviously to have a swim or to clean yourself, you had to climb all the way down to
Mm.
Camp Base One, and there we would swim. And we had some emergencies, like the director, the person who was filming
Mm.
suddenly went down. He came up, and his eye was so red, like a vein had burst inside the eye, and it looked like a complete, not pink, I mean red, like the
Oh yeah.
blood. So we had to leave a day soon, go straight to the hospital.
Mm.
And Stefan, I think, cracked a vertebrae or something. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so from there, we had to go straight to the hospital. And you can imagine how we smelled or how we looked, and there we are, we like, not good, like smelly and, wearing the same clothes for 10 days is,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, but it was, yeah, we couldn't
That
find it like other species, as we can't find them. It's gone
yeah,
extinct.
that's very sad, isn't it? That
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of human introduced animals cause
yeah,
problems everywhere. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, and this was Martinique. I went again 10 years before that. I think I went to Martinique with a colleague of mine, and we were on the main island. We were looking for a dendrobated frog, and
Yeah.
we just went for a quick swim in the sea at night. It was very hot, and she got stung by a jellyfish.
Okay.
And we're in the middle of nowhere. We're sleeping in a cabin in the forest somewhere. We have no car until the day afterwards. And
Mm.
suddenly she's choking.
Ooh, like
Yeah.
a
And
real
it
strong
was,
reaction. Yeah.
yeah, basically, she had a terrible, I thought, I don't know if she's going to die. And she was freezing cold. And so I had to put like 6 blankets on her and, kind of hugging her all night. And she was still freezing. She's having a shock. So I gave her
Wow.
antihistamines, and she had like a burn on her back. And I
Oh,
thought she
wow.
was not going to make it. And thank God we had so many, like she took like 3 or 4 antihistamines. And that was my first experience in Martinique and looking for this dendrobatia. And then she was too sick to help me. So we ended up 4 days, but we couldn't find the dendrobated frog. It's just I needed 2 people, and she was too sick. And bless her,
Yeah.
it's not her
Well,
fault.
at that point, you're just grateful she survived, right? I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
so basically, I've been 3 times to Martinique to
Mm.
look for 2 species, and I never found
Ah.
them.
So do you want
Mine's
to go
called a
back at
snake.
some point or
I don't know. I think maybe Martinique. My strike of lucky strikes there has been
yeah, limited.
3 trips, nothing to show for. I'm not sure.
So I mean, you've traveled a lot of places. Are there places you still want to go? Is there something that's on your top of your list?
Of course, I mean, there's so many. I actually want to go to Trinidad. I haven't been there in
Hmm.
since 2004. That's the last time, 19 years ago. Imagine.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
need to go back there. I've been. Um, I would like to do some other Caribbean islands for sure. Um, Northern Venezuela is extremely interesting, but it's too dangerous.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
we have some.
Venezuela is just the most biodiverse country in the world.
It's
There's
amazing.
so much there. Yeah.
But recently we did another expedition in Cape Verde. We
Mm.
spent a week in St. Lucia. It's a non-habitable, it's uninhabitable, and we went to do a species inventory there for a week. We moved it throughout the island. That was pretty cool. Um, we lost most of the water when we were landing the first time. The Zodiac just almost flipped in the waves. So you have to bear in mind that St. Lucia is like an island, a volcanic island, and there's no shade.
Oh,
So there's no trees, there's no
yeah.
cover, there's nothing, which we kind of knew, but until you're there, you don't realize how much you need shade. And
Yeah.
it was unbearably hot, and we lost most of the water, so we had to ration the water. When they came to pick us up, we had like a liter left, me and Stefan again,
Ooh.
and yeah, that was really bad. And every 3 days we move like 5 kilometers from the north of the island, then we move to the center and then to the south. And I remember the first night we camped on a beach, and there was a local guard there, and I said, can we camp here?" And he
Yeah.
said, "Yeah." I said, "Are you sure the waves will not hit us here? Because it's all rock, so it's the only
Mm.
place where you could put the tent." I said, "No, no, the water never comes here." I said, "Are you sure?" "Yeah." So it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and suddenly I'm sleeping in my tent, and I hear a wave just hitting my tent and taking me in my tent, you know? I was like,
Oh,
I'm shouting, "Stefan, get
yeah.
out." So yeah, we're looking for the ship, and there we are. The ocean is just hitting us. And we got out, luckily. Everything is
Yeah.
soaking wet. 4 o'clock in the morning, first day of the expedition. Oh, I was like, oh, this is not good, you know?
Oh, that's a really bad start.
Yeah.
And were
Yeah.
you able to communicate that somebody would come pick you up, or were
No,
you?
actually, no. I mean, the cell phones did work occasionally, but we actually managed to be okay. We rationed everything, and we were fine, and it all worked very well at the end.
Ah,
But then I remember I took a sheet, a white sheet. There's gonna do like a insect trap with a
yeah.
light behind for nocturnal animals to capture insects, invertebrates. We're doing an invertebrate survey first in
Hmm.
the island, and we're putting traps to capture insects. And we luckily we took this sheet that we could put between the two tents, and it was basically 1.5 square meters, and we could be there sitting in the shade, like in the hot part of the day, that when the sun is scorching down,
Yeah.
because you could not be in the tent. The tents are this
Yeah.
polyester. It's just an oven. So, and I remember just being there, just praying for a cloud to come or something. And yeah, no
Yeah.
shade for a week. It's not ideal. And so that's
Mm.
the last expedition we did about 2 years ago with Stefan. And now we are actually trying to go back and do some other islands, look for, you know,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Do that
So
again. Why not?
yeah, why not? But this time I'll take some other.
Yeah, bring a hat, maybe.
I'm gonna take a big umbrella, the ones you take to the beach, one of
Yeah.
those or something. And then yeah,
That's
so
like an
this
awesome
is
plan. Yeah.
yeah, and so many other things I would like to do, of course, but there's never
Mm.
enough time, is there?
No,
Yeah.
no, but well, I know you are keeping very busy, going everywhere
Well,
and with
we
science and conservation and
yeah,
taxonomy.
yeah, we try not to get too bored. Yeah. So yeah, basically, yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I've been doing, and some of those, stories.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I know you have a
Yeah,
lot more where that comes from.
yeah. There's many. You get stopped at gunpoint often in those places, and this we got stopped at gunpoint once.
Oh,
In the jungle, we were looking for frogs, and this guys wanted our money. And anyways, we had
oh,
to.
so that was really like a stick up in the jungle.
Yeah, I took a team, and we were doing in Mount St. Benedict's. We had these traps, and frogs would deposit tadpoles on the little, not traps, on the little plastic containers, and we were studying that for 3 months. And this guy just with a shotgun just came along, and I
Mhm.
knew he wanted no good. So I just walked straight to him and I said, "What are you doing here with a gun?" And it kind of broke the ice. And
Ah,
what's your name? He said, "My name's Louis. What are you doing here with a gun?" And I'm looking for anaconda. I said, "Oh,
ah,
interesting, interesting." I knew there was no anaconda in that part of
Mm.
the island. So I knew he was lying. And we said, bushmeat? Like, you want to eat it? Yeah, yeah, bushmeat, bushmeat. Yeah, okay, okay.
Mm.
So I told my team, we picked up everything, and I told my team, look, with the students, I mean, there's this guy around, just beware, take $100, Trinidad
Mm.
and Tobago dollars in your pockets. If he stops you, and I'm not there with you, just give him the money. So he's happy.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
had to go down south to look for another frog, and my team went there, and they actually got stopped at gunpoint by this guy,
Mm.
and 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 we knew the guy was lurking around. So when I went to remove the final stage of the experiments after 3 months, I had to take the police
Ah,
with machine guns and everything. We needed
wow.
protection, so I had the option of losing the experiment for 3 months, or
Yeah.
taking police and saving all my data. And of course, I was not going to leave my data, 3 months of work, to
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so we took a team of professionals, so police, I mean, and the guy was around, but he saw the police arriving, so he just left us, and we picked up everything, and so but then my team was stopped at gunpoint. That was not nice.
No, no, but yeah, you already spotted him beforehand. Well, this, and I'm sure that didn't end up in the paper, right? So these are
No,
really,
of course, no, no, no.
this is exactly what yeah, I love so much because that's why I started this podcast. These stories behind the papers,
Yeah,
really what makes the biologist life very
yeah,
interesting. Let's put it interesting.
yeah. It's always the hardest part is what you never write about.
No, no, it's just a little
It's
paper about
actually
the eggs and the tadpoles, and never about
exactly,
the
and
guy with the
and
gun.
exactly, yeah. And it's also the funding, the months of funding
Mm,
to get there, and the logistics, and you get sick, you get like everybody, and when you're there, you get dengue or something like that. It's not pleasant, or and but I
saying
suppose
the
this is
least.
yeah,
I really have to love those tadpoles to
yeah,
go through all that. Mike, if people want to, know what you're doing and
right.
follow you around with your science or anything, where do they go? Where can we find
Oh, that's
more
good.
about you?
That's a good question. I mean, I have a personal website. You can just type my name, Michael Jowers.
I will link it with
Uh,
this podcast for sure.
right, I'll be great. Thanks. And you can just find me there. Michael J. Jowers, Michael Joseph Jowers. And it's a Wix homemade, website where I put all my papers and some pictures, some expeditions, things like that, animals. And I suppose that's just putting my name in Google, the website will come up. So
We
it's
will find you then. We will find you. Awesome. Mike, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
well, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
And I hope you're gonna go around and
Sure.
survive and come back to tell us about it.
Absolutely. I would love to.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you so much, Charlie.
Bye
Lovely
bye.
talking to you. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.